Give the Drummer Some is sponsored by Supernova Drum Company. Bespoke drums made with unique shell combinations using many different species of wood. Supernova Drum Company, truly custom drums. Visit supernovadrums.com and facebook.com/supernovadrumco for more details.
There is an inexorable force in the cosmos where time and space converge. A place beyond man's vision, but not his reach. It is the most mysterious and awesome point in the universe.
Unbearable suspense and sadistic terror grips the senses as these human transplants threaten the safety of a city.
Flying saucers have invaded our planet. Washington, Brussels, Paris, Moscow are key targets. The whole world is under attack. Hold on to your chairs, folks, for here they are.
Give the drummer some.
Take that crazy rhythm.
It's nice to see you back in the old groove again, Daddy.
14-mounted toms, 8 floor toms, 4 splashes, 2 gongs, 10 cowbells, 4 rides, 5 snares, man. A roto-tom rack. And it's all mounted on my infamous quadruple kick drum system.
Hey! Please touch my drum set! Hey, knock it off!
Good evening, friend.
Welcome to this very special episode number 3 of Give the Drummer Some, a podcast where we'll be talking to well-known drummers and industry names and asking them all about their other interests away from the drums. We all know them as the masters of keeping time, but what really makes them tick? This is a special episode because I'm talking to a drummer who not only is a friend, but who has also had the opportunity to tour the world with a very successful band. That coming up soon. So listener, how about you tell us what drummers you want us to have a conversation with and what question you'd like us to ask them. To do that, follow us at facebook.com/gtdspod and on twitter.com/gtdspod, and hopefully we'll pick out your questions to be answered. You can also check out our main website at gtdspod.com for more information on us and of course on this very podcast. So, Mr. Announcer, please announce the guest drummer for today.
Today's guest drummer is best known previously for his work with English pop rock band Rooster. He is now a session drummer who has performed with Diana Vickers and Ebony Bones, and with his current job as the drummer for Death in Vegas. He's played some of the most famous venues around the world and has appeared on countless TV shows.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dave Neale.
Dave is endorsed by Supernova Drum Co., Yamaha Drums, and Zildjian Cymbals.
Hey Dave, thanks a lot for joining us on Give the Drummer Some. How's it going? Whereabouts in the world are you talking from?
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be on it, and I'm really happy to get involved with this. So it's going to be cool. I'm in my house, in my flat in Brighton,
Very nice.
with a glass of wine, and
Even better.
It's lovely. It's rubbish weather outside, but apart from that, it's nice and cosy in here. I'm ready to talk about music and drums.
Music and drums, man. So you were in a very, very popular band called Rooster, and you played the world, and very successful. And I was just wondering, how was Rooster formed, first of all?
Okay, well, basically, I years and years ago, my first ever band when I was about 12 years old, a band called Image 22, which was formed down in Cornwall when I was from. That was my first ever group, and we used to play kind of Oasis songs basically over and over again and annoyed the neighbours. The lead singer Andy Balkwill, he went to ACM. He was a little bit older than me. He ended up going to ACM, and whilst he was there, he met Luke Potashnik, who ended up was the guitarist in Rooster.
Right.
So he came back from music college and was like, I've got some original songs. We're going to gig them around the kind of surf lodges and kind of bars around in Cornwall. Do you want to play drums? And I said, yeah, playing a bit of percussion and drums and stuff. And got to know Luke really well down there. We had one summer of just kind of gigging all over the place in Cornwall, which was really good fun. And after I finished BIM, it was coming to the end. I got a phone call from Andy saying, Luke is putting together this band, and he was kind of asking what drummers he should get in contact with, and I mentioned your name, and would you be interested in doing it? So straight away I was like, brilliant, 'cause I was coming to the end of my course, and I was wondering what I was going to do. I was like, yeah, I need to get out there.
Yeah.
So so I went up to London and auditioned for Rooster, and that was it basically. I ended up kind of getting the audition. And Nick, the singer from Rooster, was at school with Luke in Eastbourne, so they knew each other for years. So they were kind of together. They had a kind of development deal going on there, and then from there it all spiraled out of control pretty quick, and ended up being a really amazing few years of my life. So
because it was a very quick rise, to the top of your game, I suppose.
Yeah.
Why? Well, how do you think it became sort of so quick in doing so? Was it? I mean, how many gigs did you do? Did you showcase to a lot of labels or?
Yeah, well, basically, Nick was previously in a band when he was a bit younger. They did a Pokemon song, band called 50 Point Grind, and they met a guy called Hugh Goldsmith, who was the head of a label called Brightside, which is part of BMG. Right. He previously worked with bands like Blue. He kind of made Blue, who they kind of were. Wanted to get a kind of more rockier project on the go, and had seen Nick before and was working with him. Right. So the contact was kind of already there, and then the band got together, and we ended up just playing gigs in all the kind of small, dark and dingy venues around London to all of our mates, basically. Places like Water Rats and the Bull and Gate, which is not there anymore. They had their last gig the other day, which is a sad thing. But like loads of different venues here and there. With those guys involved, they managed to get us kind of a few showcases that we used to do for kind of promoters and press agents and things like that. So the ball was rolling pretty quick, and we just started recording the album, and once that was done, they were really happy with it. And within 6 months of us being in the band, things were going really well, and they managed to secure us a slot on Top of the Pops, which was pretty amazing.
Helps.
So yeah, it was a bit of a whirlwind, because I mean, coming from music college and only really playing gigs around Brighton and in Cornwall, to then do our first video shoot, which was the time when the industry was full of money, basically, and ended up recording that in LA and being flown over, and that was pretty insane, and staying in a hotel on Sunset Strip and doing that, and it was it was crazy, really.
Because you recorded in Sound City.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, the second album we did, we were looking for producers, and the A&R guy had a list of people and a CD that he gave to all of us, and was like, "These are the people I'm considering." And the first name I saw on there was a guy called Matt Wallace, who produced all of the Faith No More albums. So immediately I was like, "This is the man." And he'd also done the first Maroon 5 album, which did really, really well, obviously. Yeah. So the label were really keen to work with someone who'd done a really good pop record, and it kind of all worked out. So we ended up going over to LA, where he's based, and stayed in the same apartments that Nirvana stayed in when they did Nevermind, and recorded at Sound City, where they'd recorded loads of classic albums.
Did they leave it in good condition, or was it?
It was weird. It was a really vibey studio. Out of a lot of the studios we recorded around a lot in London with the first album. In loads of different. We went from recording in Metropolis, which was like this insanely posh studio, to a guy called Dave Ruffy, who worked in Norwood. And he had a really small kind of almost home studio. It was so small. To then go to this studio in LA, where it was around Christmas time we were recording, and it was sunny, and all the beautiful people were there, and the studio was really kind of vibey. They had a pinball machine there, and a studio cat called Rewind running around, and it was crazy. You walk down the corridor there. I don't know if you've seen the Dave Grohl documentary that he's done recently.
I've bought it, but I haven't seen it yet. So
I haven't seen it yet.
No.
But it's the records that were made there, like Fleetwood Mac Rumours and Tool recorded 9 Inch Nails, Queens of Stone Age. It's insane.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've been there, recorded there, and you got plenty of pictures or videos or.
I bought a video camera in just before we were going away to America for the first video shoot. I was like, I have to get a video camera because this is too good to miss, basically.
Sure.
So I've got a drawer in the spare room at my house just full of videos and stuff that I haven't even looked at or touched for ages. So it was just film. I've got a few bits and bobs there, and it was just a mad time. Like recording the first drum tape, being in the same room that Dave Grohl had played in for Nevermind was like, it was just so inspiring. It was madness.
Just crazy. But I mean, you've toured the world. You had a gold-selling album, 3 top 20 singles. What did it feel like at the time? Did it feel surreal? Did it all go very quickly? How did it all feel for you?
It was strange. It was really strange. I mean, when I was growing up until I was about 16, I always thought I was going to be a footballer. That was my main aim in life, basically. So I always wanted to play for Arsenal. That was my big thing. And
Were you any good?
I was all right. I wasn't bad. I played for Cornwall, but that's not really
nice one.
Not a big place. But so I mean, I ended up playing a lot of football, and then when I was about 16, my mum, I'd finished school. My mum was like, I found this music course because I'd always played in bands. It was always something I'd just done as a bit of fun. And she was just like, you could go off and do A-levels and do what you want to do, or, you know, this music course could be really good, and you're passionate about it. And I realised I wasn't going to be the next David Beckham. So I was like, yeah, that sounds great, and did that. And so it was from there really that I was kind of. Then the dream kind of started, and I was like, always going to gigs thinking, God, I'd love that drum sound, or I'd love to play in front of this many people, or I'd love to be on telly and whatever. And it was weird, and to do it so quickly, you know, I was only 18 when I first started doing it. It was kind of pretty mad. Like you say, it happened so quickly that it was a bit of a whirlwind, and I tried to stay grounded and tried to keep telling myself that this wasn't going to last forever. But even though I was telling myself I had to enjoy everything, it was still mad. It was just madness, basically. Yeah,
because I mean, the band even contributed a song to a major Hollywood movie. How did that come about?
Yeah, well, it was a random one actually. I think one of Luke's friends and family actually was working on the film for Stormbreaker, which was. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but it's like a kind of kids version of James Bond, basically. Right. So it had people like Mickey Rourke and what's the guy called? I can't remember his name. Anyway, it had some really good actors in it, but Ewan McGregor was in it as well, and we were it was amazing. So we went into the studio, their kind of like film editing suite, and watched a scene from the movie that our song was going to be in, and they were like, yeah, we want to use a couple of songs from that. From our stuff, and we ended up getting the ending credits of the film, which was quite cool.
Nice one.
So yeah, that was really, really good, and ended up, you know, just kind of being in the film. We were hoping it was going to do really well, but it didn't quite do as well as we'd hoped. But it was still an amazing thing to be involved with.
And you went to the premiere, I'm guessing, as well? Yeah,
we went to the premiere, which was great. Walking down the red carpet in Leicester Square, which is pretty awesome. It was great, and you're kind of hanging out with all these celebrities, and you're seeing all these people everywhere, and there was like a really awesome after show party in one of the clubs kind of in centre of London, and loads of people there, a lot of schmoozing going on, which I've never been a massive fan of in terms of whenever people talk about networking and stuff. I'm never one of those schmoozing types. I just rather kind of have a nice chat with someone and talk to them because I want to talk to them rather than kind of, you know, be kind of sucking up to anyone. But it was great. It was amazing.
Cool, man. Well, I mean, out of all the achievements that the band had, what felt like the biggest one to you?
What felt like the biggest one? I don't know. I mean, having an album, our album was in the top 3. which was really good. And I was really chuffed about that. But I mean, we did like some of the gigs we did. I mean, I got to travel the world basically.
Right.
We did really well in Japan, and we were out there quite a lot. I've been out there like six or seven times.
Right.
So that was an eye opener, and it's such an amazing culture, an amazing place, and
It's just like another world, I'd imagine, because everything's just so different there. You've got it's very modern in some places, but then very traditional in others.
exactly. Like being in Tokyo, we spent a lot of time in Tokyo because that was where the label was based. So we were, staying at the kind of in Shibuya and going around the shopping and the food, the restaurants we went to is amazing. And then we did a tour of Japan, and you go to some of these really kind of small cities, seeing all of the kind of monasteries they've got there and all the amazing kind of sights in the mountains, and going on the bullet train, which was really cool. I mean, it's such a different culture, and the way that they kind of act around people is just amazing. They're so polite, and everything's kind of very they're always thinking about other people. They're not a very selfish culture. It was pretty amazing to see, really.
Because whenever you see, bands playing live in Japan, they're always sat down. They're always sort of checking the band out, as opposed to jumping about and get a bit nuts like European shows and American shows and stuff. Did you find that they were sort of ultra respectful as well to you guys when you played live, or?
Definitely, that's one thing that you'd notice. You could be playing. We played a festival called Summer Sonic over there, which is like the equivalent, I suppose, to kind of Reading over here.
Right.
And it was in this kind of baseball stadium, one of the dates, and you're there, and they watch a song, and they will go crazy. They will go crazy during the song, but as soon as it's finished, you get kind of 3 claps. Everyone just goes, and then that's it, and it's dead silence, and they're waiting for you to say something, to them, or they're ready for you to play the next song. And it's very strange. You can be in the biggest venue ever, and you can still chat to people on stage who's like right at the other side of the stage. It's a surreal experience. And around when you play gigs in the UK, you got people throwing beer everywhere and shouting and being the classic English lout, as it were. Obviously that's great as well. It's good to experience gigging in other cultures, I think.
Yeah, but everything, you experience the whole lot. But you guys played the Budokan, didn't you?
Yeah, we did.
What was that like?
That was another another great gig, and it was filmed for a DVD actually at the time that was released only in Japan, I think. But we were supporting Avril Lavigne on that show, and
did you get to meet her at all, or?
We didn't really get to meet her. She was one of those people that was in her dressing room on her own, and the bouncer was outside, kind of thing. But the band, we went for dinner with them that night, and they were absolutely lovely people. They were really, really nice. But to play in a venue with so much history surrounding it, in terms of the Beatles have played there, and Sabbath have played there, and there's loads of great artists that had just gone through, and also the history in terms of, I think it was used for sumo wrestling as well, that venue. So it was like a real kind of...
Didn't have any of them in the audience, though?
No, luckily not.
So what would you say is the best venue that you've ever played then?
It's a difficult one. I think the best gig I've ever done was probably the Royal Albert Hall supporting Robert Plant.
Very cool.
We did a Teenage Cancer Trust gig there.
Right.
And it was us and the Bees, Robert Plant. It was quite early on, and I'd always watched like the Led Zeppelin DVD at the Albert Hall, and obviously went to see Cream there when they reformed and stuff. And my dad was in the audience, and he shed a tear that night.
Oh, so that's cool, man.
It was a nice thing to have. But that's another venue where it's just so much history. If you could pick a venue to play, it would have been that one. I mean, it was incredible. So that was really good. Obviously, playing big festivals and stuff. We did the main stage at V Festival one year.
Right.
And they're always a surreal experience, because it's just heads, just skin everywhere.
A sea of heads in front of you.
Of heads, exactly. A lot of people kind of like, if you talk to them about it, they're always like, how nerve-wracking is it playing in front of that many people? And a lot of people always say it's actually more nerve-wracking playing to a smaller venue,
Right.
where you can see everyone's faces. You know, you can see the reaction to the music all the time.
Yeah.
And when you actually play like quite a big venue like that, well, it's a different experience. But you just see a sea of people, and it almost becomes kind of impersonal.
Right.
It was amazing, absolutely unbelievable to do.
So I'm guessing you've been on the road a fair bit from the sounds of it. Have you got any good stories from the road at all, or
good stories from
any
the road?
juicy stories at all?
There's not a lot of juicy stories actually. We were quite our techs always used to take the mick out of the fact that we were the kind of most least rock and roll band at that time that was around. But recently I've been playing for Death in Vegas, and we were at a festival in Australia,
Right.
and it was a festival called Harvest Festival, and there was basically all the bands stay in the same hotel and go to dinner together, and they all travel together, which was just really cool. Gave us a chance to meet some people, and Wayne Coyne from the Flaming Lips kind of came over and was kind of had a chat, and Dom from the band ended up swapping numbers with him, and he ended up sending loads of random text messages of pictures of his face. Loads of coloured stuff all over them on Photoshop, which is very strange. So that was kind of cool. But I don't know about rock and roll stories, really. We once trashed a dressing room in Cambridge.
Right.
And we were so embarrassed about it that we tidied it up. That's how rock and roll we were. Yeah.
Have you ever thrown a TV out of a window or anything like that? No cars in swimming pools or anything?
No. Well, I have thrown a TV out of a window, but that was for a TV show.
Right.
that they wanted us to throw a TV out of a window because they thought it was rock and roll.
Okay.
Yeah, not really. I don't know. Really, I'm trying to think. There's not really much that's kind of been that rock and roll, really. No, it's been a bit boring.
Oh, well, a bit boring.
I wish I'd lived a better life.
Oh well.
More rock and roll lifestyle.
Well, what happened? Well, now going to sort of the end of your time with Rooster. What actually happened at the end of Rooster? Because you guys were riding high in the charts, everything was all going great for you, touring, and then it all seemed to stop fairly sudden.
Yeah.
So what happened at that time?
Well, we had a long writing process. I mean, musically, actually, what people don't think really gave us that much credit for was like the fact that we could all play our instruments, to a good standard, and like we were playing with bands that necessarily were just mime all the time, or there's a lot of festivals we did where you'd see people that haven't studied their instruments as long, and they just kind of look good and they can sing a bit, but like so. We were good at what we did there, but songwriting was something that we found quite difficult, and we did a lot of jamming, and it was hard because we were sending loads of songs to the label, and they were always like, no, we're not keen on this one, and then we'd keep coming back and toing and froing, and in the end we ended up just kind of trying to please each other, basically. So the label would kind of give us a bit of slack here and there, and we try and be writing stuff that we thought they'd like, and so it's not really true to what you should be doing, really. So the writing process took an extended period, which meant that we were kind of off the radar for a while.
Okay.
Ended up recording in LA. There was still a lot of toing and froing with the album. We were trying to make it sound a bit more rocky, and the label wanted it to be more poppy, and it was always the way. It was a bit of a battle there. And we finished the album, released the first single, where we wanted to release something that was a bit more of a statement of like, we're back and it's a party tune and it's all really rocky. But the label kind of wanted us to hit the kind of housewives market for the... because they'd seen Robbie Williams come out with his record and it did really well, and they were like, it's only housewives that buy records these days in the supermarket, so you've got to cater for them. So that was a bit weird. So we released one of our kind of more epic kind of not so aggressive singles called Home, which we thought was a good tune, and it would have been one we'd have released, but straight away it just kind of was a bit bland, I think I would have said, as a comeback single.
Right.
And it didn't do that well. So we thought, we'll go in for a meeting. We called in for a meeting the next week, and we were like, right, we're going to go in there, and our stance is going to be, we're going to go with this rockier song and we're going to put our foot down. And we were in the canteen talking about it at the label, and we went in and sat down and thinking we were going in to talk about the next single, and they just said, the head of the label, his daughter's not into you guys anymore, so we think that that's a good enough reason to say that girls, we had a bit of a kind of teenage girl following, that they're not going to be into it anymore, so letting you go.
Wow.
And it was completely out of the blue. We have no idea. So it just kind of, they said, we'll help you with whatever way you need. When we did a last tour and released one more single, which was in conjunction with the film, and it all just kind of petered out after all that hard work of doing the album and doing this amazing recording process. We ended up basically the album getting shelved pretty much. I mean, it got released, but they didn't put anything behind it. So it was a bit of a difficult time, really. But
because ITV, they sort of do this thing. I think they call it the big reunion, and they've got a lot of bands come together. And I think they sort of did a gig, and then from that gig, now by the looks of it, a lot of them are reforming and coming out and starting up again.
Yeah.
If ITV contacted you or perhaps the other guys in the band and sort of offered the same chance to be part of something like the big reunion, would you take it, or would you kind of say, Rooster's done now, that's kind of in the past?
It's a difficult one, because there was one girl on Twitter that was campaigning for us to do it.
Right.
It was nice to have that one fan still there. But yeah, it was, I don't know. As an 18-year-old, I would have been like, there's no way I'd ever do something like that. It's selling out, man. It's not cool. But these days, with a bit more of a kind of experience, and to do it as a bit more of a nostalgic thing, it was something that it was a period of my life that I'll never forget. And it was amazing. So to get back together would be cool. I definitely think about it, but the other guys are doing really well now. We've all moved on with what we're doing, and Ben, the bass player, is doing a lot of kind of sessions and stuff. Luke, the guitarist, was sessioning for ages, doing some really high-profile gigs, and now he's in a band called the Temperance Movement, who are doing really well.
Really well. They're always on Planet Rock Radio, because I listen to that a lot. They're on the whole time, and they're doing really good. So
they're kind of hitting that kind of old school bluesy vibe, which is where his roots have always been, and it's good. It's a band of session musicians, I think, that have all got together and decided to do their own band, which I have a lot of respect for. Bands like the Presidents, USA came out of that, so I think that's a cool thing to do. And Nick is a songwriter, so he's writing songs for loads of different people, and he's got a home life. He's got a kid now, and he's married, and I don't know. I think about it, definitely, seriously, but it's not something I'm desperate for.
Right, I got you. So, I mean, I'm guessing you still keep in contact with the other guys in the band, or?
Yeah, I mean, I tried to get us. We haven't been in the same room for going on 6 years, something like that. But I've met up with them briefly here and there, bumped into each other at festivals and at gigs and stuff, but I was trying to get them all together for a drink, and us to kind of go for a drink, and it kind of nearly happened, and then because everyone's so busy, you just get someone go, oh no, I can't make it, so you have to reschedule. But I speak to them now and again on kind of Facebook and stuff, and always keep in touch. They were good. They're one of my best mates for a few years.
Hey guys, sorry to butt into the old conversation there, but I've got to talk about our sponsor, and that is Supernova Drum Co. You can check out all their drums at supernovadrums.com, all their different finishes that they do, as well as the different shells. Everything is completely custom made, as bespoke as you could possibly get. They're an incredible company, but I would be saying that. I'm pretty biased. But anyway, they have everything that you need to know about them on their main page at supernovadrums.com. You've got drums, you've got cajons, you've got pictures, videos, prices, everything you'll need. They're also on Facebook at facebook.com/supernovadrumco. So just take a few minutes out to go over there, check them all out, check out their drums, check out the vids, and if you got any questions about drums or looking to get some custom-made drums, give them a shout, and I'll contact you as soon as physically possible. So check them out, Supernova Drum Co. at supernovadrums.com. Now, back to the interview. So what would you say was your main experience being signed to a record label? I mean, if people, because I hear a lot of people and they, drummers, they're in bands and all they want to do is get a record deal and all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of bands sort of going down the indie route and sort of doing their own thing using social media. What do you think? Do you think a record label is something that should be worth going for, or
I think it can work. It can work for you both ways. But I think these days, in the world that we live in, the way the music industry's changed, it's so different. When I was doing that and I had dealings with record labels, there was no MySpace, there was no YouTube, there was nothing. MySpace has come and gone in the time since I've been in that band. So it's like it was so different, and labels had the power, they had the money, they were throwing money at everything, and we were one of the casualties, I suppose, of the music industry changing and people not having the money, and they panicked and got rid of a lot of artists. But nowadays you've got websites like Pledge Music, where people can donate, your fans can give you money and to release your record, and you don't need the label. And I almost think that that's the way that music should go, because it's the fans of music, it's the people that listen to music, that if you can get a closer relationship with them, they believe in you a lot more, and they'll buy into what you're doing a lot more. Not necessarily financially buy in, but both sides of that. There's people offering there's prices on their websites for Pledge for we'll do a gig in your house for £2,000, and people can bid on that and give them £2,000 and they'll do it. And there's been some real successes from that. So I don't necessarily think you need a label these days, but I think the most important thing for young bands is to put the work in and promote yourselves and talk to people and always talk about your band and get in people's faces. And management definitely helps for the kind of financial side and decision making, and a good booking agent, if you can get one, is where it's at now, because live gigs are where the money's made, and where they're still going strong. They're stronger than ever. So it's not a necessity, as it were.
Well, after Rooster, you took a bit of time off, I'm guessing, after the bit of a bombshell from the head of the label.
Yeah.
What did you do then?
Well, from there, I moved back to Cornwall with my dad. Just kind of had a year there. My friend from sixth form college actually had a band that needed a drummer, so I thought it was a good opportunity for me to just do something different, go back to Cornwall, the quiet life, and just take time to just not have any pressures and just do a band for some fun, rather than kind of a serious job at that time. So I went back and played in a band called The Truths, which were kind of like primal screamy kind of band, which was really good fun, and we did a load of gigs down there. But it was going from doing those big gigs I was talking about to playing in bars again and clubs, and that was it was a real grounding experience. But I had a great time and met some new friends back down in Cornwall that I had some great times with. And then from there, I thought naively, being still quite young, that it'll be fine. I'll just ring someone up and I'll get a session and it'll be really easy. But it didn't kind of happen like that. Right. So I then had to kind of claw myself back into getting some paid gigs basically and doing some session work, which was what I always wanted to do. Right. And luckily kind of got a few inroads here and there and managed to get a few decent gigs.
And what was the first gig that you did? Getting back into it all again?
I'm just trying to think. I mean, I played for this Russian singer called Slava, who was basically, she's a movie star in Russia.
Right.
And she had loads of money and decided that she wanted to become a pop star. So she found an English, as you do.
As you do.
She found an English manager and wanted it, and recorded an album, did a video, and wanted to put a band together. And we basically, I got a call. Carl Brazil, who's a good session drummer, who I'd met, and from being in Rooster, he called me up and said there's this gig opportunity, and I was like, great. And rehearsed in London. I think we rehearsed for about a month to end up only doing one gig.
No.
Which was in Dubai.
Okay.
Supporting Maroon 5, miming as well. So we rehearsed for a month to mime for one gig in a car park in Dubai. That was the weirdest thing. And it was very strange as well, not being the artist anymore. Like, just being the session musician. It's a different world, you know.
Right.
You're not treated the same. Not that it was something that I always strive to be, you know, weighted on hand and foot. It was just interesting, the dynamic. As soon as you're just a musician, you're not the artist. It was interesting. But yeah, it was that was a good experience, and it kind of, because it was a, inverted commas, an easy-ish gig, because we were just, I could have played anything that night, it wouldn't have mattered because we were miming, but it was quite nice to kind of get back in, rehearsing at a big rehearsal studio in London, and just getting back into it slowly,
into the swing of things again.
Yeah, so that was like the first gig I kind of got, and then once people kind of, I've started to get in contact again with people I'd met and letting them know I was available. A few bits and bobs kind of appeared here and there.
Right, I got you. Here's a question for you. The cymbals, when you mime on TV shows, some of my students, because I also teach the drums, they sort of ask me about those cymbals, if they tape them up.
Yeah.
But they're not taped up at all. Are they made in a special way that when you hit it doesn't make a noise? Or
yeah, basically it's the same for video shoots as
yeah.
well. So when you're either miming, I don't advocate that at all. We didn't do much miming, but some TV shows, like, you have to mime, otherwise you're not going on, so you end up having to do it. But you have two cymbals glued together.
Right.
So if you look at the Smells Like Teen Spirit video, some people, like in that video, Dave Grohl's got his cymbals taped up underneath.
Yep.
And that's the kind of low budget way to do it, and the kind of more kind of edgier way to do it.
Okay.
And also, so there's two cymbals glued together basically, and they kind of make a really dead kind of dunk noise. And it's like almost like kitchen lino on the drums,
right,
or practice pads basically.
Right. So I haven't been lying to all these people then all these years.
What have you been saying?
That's what I said. It's a special symbol. They make special symbols that they sort of, you know, send out, and so that people can use them on TV. So it gives them like a dead sound as opposed to.
That is true. I mean,
cool,
they do.
Nice.
You do hide them. Yeah. You're not wrong. You hide them, but that's essentially what they are.
Right. Okay. Cool. Well, you also did a lot of work with Diana Vickers, who appeared on, was it The X Factor?
The X Factor, yes, it was. And
how long did you play drums for her?
It was literally about a year and a half, I'd say. So when she released her first album, basically, she kind of wanted to have a band around her, and did some pretty cool gigs with her, actually. And that's another thing that was kind of a bit strange, is that the kind of young me was always kind of like, I like rock music and metal, and that's it. And to end up looking at me in the future playing kind of really big kind of pop things was a bit weird. So that was really, really cool. She's a really lovely girl, and really, it's amazing to think some of the less popular acts that I've worked with have been the ones with the attitude and the kind of diva-ness as such, and some of the most successful people that I've met along the way are the ones that are actually the nicest. And I think that kind of goes to show you've got to have the right attitude, I think, in the music industry, and that's a big part of going far, basically, and doing well.
Right. Did she win the X Factor, or was it?
No, it was the year of. It's a bit sad that I know all about this, but obviously my employer, so I'm not a big X Factor fan, but
sure.
She was the year of JLS and Alexandra Burke. I think she won it that year.
Right, I've got you.
But yeah, we managed to do. We did a couple of gigs supporting JLS, which was really, really cool. They were probably some of the biggest gigs I've done in terms of capacity. wise. So they basically did a tour where they just toured in castles around the country.
Right.
Kind of grand gardens there.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, it was cool. We had a good game of football with them backstage. That was fun. Yeah. So I mean, yeah. Again, it was an interesting experience, and this was a time when the industry was taking a turn financially, and she was a #1 artist at the time.
Right.
And we were touring in a splitter van and staying at Premier Inns. So it's
it just shows.
The money just literally went, and it just, you know, it was like your average touring with any band, with your own band. It was like the same kind of thing. So that was quite an eye opener, definitely.
Well, I think a lot of people out there think that record deals are just, you know, the labels just throw money at you, and, you know, you tour, you get lots of money, you know, build your own house, have your swimming pool outside, and everything's, you know, all great. But I mean, with a record deal, it's a bank loan that you have no control over.
No, exactly.
And you've got to pay back every penny with interest as well, you know.
Exactly, and you do, you know, you sit there, and when I started doing it, and we were being flown out to all these places, and we were getting cars everywhere, and people were driving us all over the place, and, you know, at 18 it was like, this is it, we've made it.
Yeah.
It's only then you sit back afterwards and you think, hang on, I was paying for all of that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I was paying for it all, so...
Paid for the lot.
Yeah, that's scary.
Well, I mean, all the T-shirts and all the, you know, the stage sets and everything, that is ultimately, you know, in the long run, that is paid for by the band.
Yeah.
But a lot of people seem to think it's just, you know, you get given a lot of money, you have fun, and, you know, whatever you make, you keep. But, you know, it all goes, which, you know,
exactly.
I suppose...
You've got to be a business. I hate talking about it as a business, because music should be about your art, without sounding too deep, man, but like you need to be about expressing yourself. And I started doing music not because I wanted to necessarily be famous and do everything, although it was something that you always think about, you kind of dream of, but like I didn't go out to do it for that. I did it because I enjoyed music, I'd listen to music, and I'd kind of just love playing drums, basically. And you've got to immediately, as soon as you're in the industry, it's called the music industry for a reason. You know, it's a business. It's you've got to be savvy, and the people that do well, you know, the ones that, you know, they've got their head screwed on all the time, and they, you know, don't take any kind of rubbish from anyone, really.
And they got good accountants as well, and
that too, yeah,
things like that.
Yeah, totally.
So, what is your view of these so-called reality TV shows that sort of center around music, like X Factor and things like that? Because, you know, I'd imagine it was quite tough at the time for Diana, sort of getting, you know, tough dealing with management and dealing with, you know, sort of what the people up high tell you what to do.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, X Factor and things like that, it's not something that I don't know, it's not something... Well, I kind of agree with it in a sense, because it's still getting people excited about music, and people bought into the personalities as opposed to just the kind of, this is what you're like kind of thing. People had a chance to get involved and vote for who they wanted and things like that. And I think giving it back to the people that listen to music is kind of cool. But at the same time, it just started to churn out this kind of array of singers that are there one minute, they're gone the next, and it's, you know, and then the Simon Cowells of this world move on to the next one, and they're like, oh, it's always next year, we'll get someone else and they'll do well and whatever. So it's kind of helped the industry in a way, but it's done a bit of damage. But without X Factor, we wouldn't have had Rage Against the Machine at #1. So
well, there we go.
But for me, obviously, personally, I mean, I've got work out of it, and, you know, I can never say it was a bad idea in that sense. But I think there's a lot of pressure coming on it, and luckily, I think Diana was a little bit different on the show, and her not winning was technically a bit of a kind of blessing in disguise, as it were, and she could kind of go off and do her thing, and she had time without the real pressure.
Yeah.
Do an album that she wanted to do, and it did well. So
yeah, sure. Well, you also work with the artist Ebony Bones.
Yeah.
And it looks a bit mad. All her
It is
videos
mad.
live and all that kind of stuff. What was it like working with her?
That's the maddest time of my musical life. It was she's someone who's got her head screwed on. What was the kind of people I was talking about? She's someone who does everything is kind of almost self-funded, and she's into her clothing, and she's really fashion based, and she's kind of got fingers in different pies, and she models and she does films and things like that, and she's always got involved in lots of different things. She's a real networker, and so basically it was kind of we didn't do really any gigs in the UK. It was all around Europe, festivals. She's really big on, because it's all kind of, the way to describe the music, I suppose, is kind of like tribal African Afrobeat, punk, electro.
Wow,
if that makes any sense. So it's really crazy, and it's great. It's really fun to play, and I had the chance. We did a tour with 2 drummers, which was really, really cool. There's a guy called Ben Morgan, who I've known from back in Cornwall, who also went to BIM, actually.
All right.
We did a tour doing it with 2 drummers, which was awesome. Rehearsing was the loudest thing in the world, but it was really good. But that was a lot of kind of self-funded stuff. So there was a lot of kind of playing the gig, getting straight to the airport at 4 a.m, and getting the cheapest flight possible, and then running for trains, and then getting 2 hours sleep, and checking into these crazy hotels that were like the kind of B&Bs around Europe, and then getting to the gig and playing the gig and going off. And it was absolutely manic, which also went along with the whole music, which was absolutely manic. And it was really good fun. It was really good fun.
How long did you play with her for then?
I played kind of on and off with her for about, all in all, over a good kind of 2 or 3 year period, really.
Right.
I kind of did a good solid amount of gigs with her, and then went off and did some other stuff, and then she gave me a call and I came back in, and then I did the tour with the 2 drummers, and then I went off and did something, and Ben stayed on as the main drummer, and I did a couple of bits here and there, and I did some recording for her as well, some for her next album, which no idea when that's being released, but so she's someone that I kind of, she knows a lot of people, and it's like Spinal Tap moment. There's been about 7 or 8 drummers that have come and gone.
All blown up.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say, that siren in the background is not for you, is it?
Oh no, it's not for me.
We haven't got to wrap up soon because we've got to...
It's not my time. I'm not hiding away from police.
So listen, having been there and seen it all, what would be the best advice that you would give to up and coming drummers?
Up and coming drummers, I'd say it's all about it. You've obviously got to be at a decent level for your instrument. You've got to practice hard. I mean, at music college, it gave me the opportunity to be playing drums every single day for at least 2 hours a day.
Right.
I'd be playing kind of for a few hours at college, and then I'd always be practicing for an hour or 2 in the evening if I could. And you've got to get to a good standard. Obviously, that's the kind of obvious thing. But more importantly, it's just being a nice person and being around musicians all the time.
Right.
So you can be going to gigs, you can be hanging out in music shops, you can be online on music forums, you can be on Twitter and Facebook, and just getting out there and just telling people what you do, and not necessarily kind of barging in and saying, oh, I'm a drummer, but like as soon as someone mentions they're into music, be like, hey, I'm into music, I play drums, and just getting through that way. And you'll get a gig again because you're a nice person, you're easy to work with, you turn up on time, you're easy for them, you get on with everyone, and you just got to, and that they're the ones that kind of get the most gigs and the most successful, I think.
Because all I've ever read is just be yourself and just play what is needed for the song, rather than throwing all your chops in. I mean,
Yeah.
I think Thomas Lang and drummers like that, I love watching drummers like that, but you do get people that kind of feel that they have to throw in every rudiment and every, pattern that they know to try and get gigs. But I mean, if you're playing for a pretty mellow blues band, you don't want to be sort of, bring out the double pedals and
Yeah, exactly.
Throwing lots of shapes.
Exactly. If you're in an audition, you walk in, and the people at the audition, whether you're doing like a kind of audition in front of like a couch full of people, or there's the rest of the band, just the rest of the band there, they just want to hear their song played well. They don't want to hear you just jamming fills, like putting a bar of 5 in at randomly or whatever. Like they don't want to hear that. They just want to hear the song played with conviction and confidence and played well.
Right.
And 90%, I mean, obviously, from going from kind of rock gigs that I've done to pop gigs and everything, the simpler the better.
Right.
And I always think that if you've got one fill, one chop in your back catalogue, if you're doing a gig and you just get it out for a bar of one fill in a whole gig, then that has so much more impact than shredding over the whole thing. Because people just don't want to hear it,
Sure.
So, yeah.
Well, say there's any listeners who are about to sign on that dotted line of a record contract. What advice would you give them?
What advice do I give them? That is a difficult question.
Apart from read it carefully.
I'd say read it carefully. Are you doing the right thing? No. I'd just be confident that you have. Just do your research and make sure you know the people that you're dealing with, and be happy. If something's not right, you don't feel right about something, then you shouldn't do it, because it'll only come back to bite you, and it'll be amplified a million times later on down the line. So it's great. Don't rush into anything, and just make sure you read it through, get it all checked out, and make sure you're all happy and you're all comfortable, and you're working with the right people, basically.
Because I'd imagine that there are people out there that sort of, a label offers them, to sign up, here's the contract, and they just go straight in, sign it straight away without reading anything.
Yeah.
When you've got to read everything just to double check. So
exactly, and like I say, these days with the way the music industry is, with the fact that you can get so far on your own, there's not that need necessarily for you to go out and immediately sign that deal, because you know that even if you didn't sign it, there's still a possibility you could do it all yourself, basically.
Yeah, there's other ways around it.
So I wouldn't rush into it just for the fact that you can be like, we're signed kind of thing, because it's not as important these days, I don't think.
Sure. Well, now you're a session drummer. How different does it feel from actually being in a band?
Yeah, it's strange. I mean, it's a difficult one, really, because obviously you've got to remember you're part of the backroom team almost.
Right.
You don't get taken for you're not doing the interviews anymore, which is although it's great to do things like this, I love doing them now and again. But when you're doing a week-long promo tour and you're literally talking to interviewer after interviewer for all day, every day, there's something I don't miss. So that's quite that's quite good. I like doing the odd thing, especially getting to talk about drums as well. It's great.
Cool.
And yeah, it's a tricky one, really. You just got to always, if you're in a band, you play for what you want to do. You want to be, like we were talking about, playing for the song and stuff. You want to do that, but you want to be writing your own parts, and you want to be kind of being able to have an input into a lot of things. Whereas some situations with a session musician, you just have to sit there and you have an MD who just comes in and goes, you're playing this and you'll do it like this. And you have to just be like, yes, I will.
Right.
And we did a gig with Diana. We did a gig in a library in Lancaster, I think.
Right.
And the sound man was like, we're going to have to put towels over your drums because it's too, the acoustics in here are horrendous.
Okay.
And I had to basically be like, in my mind going, the drums will sound terrible. But in reality, I just had to be like, that's fine. Because as long as Diana sounded good,
yeah,
that's all people cared about, and it wasn't about you anymore. Kind of like you were saying earlier, doing that, big fill and spinning your sticks or whatever. It's about you playing for someone else. But now working with Death in Vegas is like I'm kind of a session musician as such, because I didn't really play on the album because it's very electronic. But now when we go out, we are treated like a band. Right. So it's a bit of a different atmosphere than before, and so that's kind of quite nice.
It's kind of the best of both worlds, I suppose.
Totally. So I don't, Rich Fearless is like the main guy there, and he's the guy who is Death in Vegas, basically. He makes it all happen. He does the records, and he's obviously been there since the beginning, and he kind of gets all the kind of worrying about labels and management and interviews and all of that, and we basically just get to kind of turn up and play gigs and rehearse and do the fun bits. So
cool. Well, how did you get together with Death in Vegas then?
Yeah, well, that's kind of a similar thing to what I was saying before about, you just got to, when you surround yourself with musicians and around music, you get to meet certain people. That was a gig that just came out of nowhere, really. I'm in a band called Skirts, which is like my kind of like originals band in Brighton, who we just kind of, it's me and one of my mates, and it's bass and drums, kind of like a scuzzy rock thing, just to get all of our aggression out. And we played gigs around in Brighton, and we were kind of doing okay, and I wanted to get some demos up on our Facebook page, I think. And Eddie, the other guy in the band, his mate Dom, they used to be in a band called The Lodge together. And he's quite tech savvy, and we were like, oh, can you bring your computer down and just record a rehearsal, and we just do some kind of rough demos. And he did that, and we met and went out for a beer and got on really well. And a couple of weeks later, he got a call from Rich Fearless to offer him the position playing bass in Death in Vegas, because Rich had produced his band's album, and so it was like, I really liked your bass playing, I want you to get you involved. So I rang Dom up and was like, oh, congratulations for getting the gig, that's really, really amazing, and oh, that's really cool, and I hope it all goes well. And he turned around and basically said, funnily enough, they asked me if I knew any drummers, and I've obviously just worked with you, so I got on well, and that was it really. And kind of spoke to Rich on the phone, and that was it. It was weird because it's the only band that I've kind of not done that's kind of done all right that I haven't had to audition for. It was just a phone conversation.
Cool.
and he just was like, "Yeah, I like you." So that was it. And then rehearsing the next week. So
nice. Cool, man. Well, apart from being a session drummer, what else are you up to?
Well, obviously, like I said, I'm playing in my band Skirts. For those of you that have got the Tinterweb, www.skirtsband.co.uk. Just going to get that plug in there.
Go for it, man. And we'll play a track at the end of the podcast if you want.
Super, that's great. So we're running a night called Late Night Lingerie in Brighton, which is a kind of night that started out just because we played a gig at the Great Escape Festival last year at 4 a.m, and it went really crazy and went mental. And we were like, what if we make a club night which starts at 11 and finishes at 4 like a normal club night, but it's just bands. So we started doing that, and that's kind of created a bit of a buzz in Brighton. We've had some really good, like really scuzzy garage rock, grunge, and kind of punk bands and stuff play, and that's kind of doing really well. So I mean, I kind of do a little bit of that. Eddie's kind of the main man when it comes to that. There's a documentary being made about it and stuff, so that's going well.
Cool.
Also, I work for a website called musobox.com, which is a site for musicians basically to connect with each other, meet each other, put up your profile. So it's kind of like almost like a Facebook kind of social networking profile. You've got pictures of yourself, bit of audio, bit of video, all your contact details, and a little bit about you, what instrument you play, things like that. And jobs are posted on the site, so we're getting musicians a lot of paid work. There's been quite a few musicians that have done really well out of it, and we've got a few paid gigs coming from like signed bands and also a few function gigs, and I've managed to secure a couple of gigs out of it. So
nice one.
Yeah, so it's still early days, but That's really, really cool, and it's a completely free website. And we're in development to get an app sorted, which should be out soon as well. So it's just basically a free service for musicians to get work, because it is a tough time for everyone at the moment. And if you can get musicians all in one place and be able to check each other out and say hi, it's what it's all about.
It just helps out a lot, doesn't it? So.
Exactly. I'm doing that. I'm also sorry, I'm doing lots of.
That's all right. Go work away. It's fine, man.
I kind of have got into a bit of videography and a bit of photography as well. So I'm kind of trying to get as many fingers in pies at the moment and trying to keep myself busy. So I've made a couple of music videos and for bands, and done a few bits and bobs, photo shoots here and there. So I'm trying to get that sorted, and that's kind of coming hand in hand with the music stuff, really, because the more people I meet, if I can't play drums for them, then I'll do a photo shoot for them or a video. So
nice.
It's these days with the session work kind of being, it's not so much of a money spinner. It's quite difficult to kind of sustain yourself, I've found. That I wanted something where I could do it when I've come off tour, and I could do it whilst I'm on tour. So I can edit a video on tour, I can keep up with the website stuff, keep managing it and dealing with stuff there, and just being able to kind of have lots of different things and try and always stay creative and meeting people, but just doing it through different avenues, basically.
Just keeping yourself busy, really, hey?
Exactly.
Cool, man. Well, yeah, if you want to go over those websites again, it's is it musobox.com or?
Yeah, it's www.musobox.com, and that's just go on there, set up a profile. It's all 100% free, and just go in there. Tell us what you think as well. It's quite a new site, so we're always looking for people to go on and tell us whether they think it was rubbish or they had a good experience or they've got some gigs out of it or whatever. So that's really cool. And my kind of filming photography stuff is Wild Stag Studio, which is on Facebook. You search on Facebook. Cool. And skirtsband.co.uk. So
nice one.
I've plugged as much as I can. I've sold myself.
Fantastic. That's what it's all about, man. Well, look, our time's up, but thanks a lot for talking to us, and hopefully chat to you soon. And if you want to come back on the podcast again, tell us about all your future endeavours and things, then you're more than welcome, man. Come back on.
Yeah, definitely. I would always be up for it. I think it's a great idea, great podcast, which I will be listening to all the time. And thank you very much for having me, and I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of them.
Cool, thanks, man. Well, we'll put a Skirts track on at the end of the podcast as well.
Fantastic. I hope everyone enjoys it.
Cool, thanks, man. All right, take care.
Cheers, bye.
Cheers, bye. So there we go. We're another interview down, and I really enjoyed that, talking to Dave Neale. He's a really cool bloke, and he's got quite a story to tell. So make sure you check out the links that he put on the interview. The first one being Musobox at musobox.com. Then you got his band Skirts, and their main page is at facebook.com/skirtsband, and also his videography photography studio, Wild Stag Studio, and that's at facebook.com/wildstagstudio. So check him out. So I said during the podcast I would play a track from Skirts, and I will do that to end the podcast. The track is called Spit Shake. Check it out. Hope you dig it. And we'll see you on episode 4. Have fun now. See you later.
You
Try!